It's Monday, March 18th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we learn more about a new 100% renewable energy offering from Cape Light Compact, get an update from Senator Sear, and review safety for open burning with Chief Wynn. Now for a look at municipal news and notes. The Massachusetts Board of Higher Education officially approved a new Associate in Science in Funeral Service degree program for Cape Cod Community College this week. The program, which will be offered entirely on the campus of Bridgewater State University, begins in September. Prospective students can apply now for the program and receive guaranteed acceptance. Students will only be required to be on campus at BSU 2 days a week. This allows a flexible schedule for working adults to balance work, life, and higher education. More information at capecod.edu. This February, Cape Light Compact launched a new program, CLC Local Green, which provides power supply program customers with two choices for supporting locally generated renewable power. Austin Brandt, Senior Power Supply Planner, has the details. We talk a lot about saving money and saving energy, but wouldn't you like to save money, energy, and go green at the same time? With me today, Austin Brandt, Senior Power Supply Planner from Cape Light Compact. You have some really great news out of the Compact.
Absolutely. So the Compact, we just launched last month our CLC Local Green program. So what CLC Local Green program is a power supply program for people that want to contribute to local renewable energy based right here in New England and even on Cape Cod. And they want to be able to do that through their power supply bill that they pay every month that comes through the Eversource bill. So for the power that they're using in their homes or businesses, they could be matching that with renewable energy produced right here in New England.
That is, I mean, that's really a fantastic way to, kind of do your part. As people say, every village, every town kind of has to take a look at what they're producing out there for fossil fuels, and then really, wow, renewable energy right here on Cape Cod, Vineyard Wind's coming in. So talk a little bit about the process. How does this work?
Sure. So every month you get an electricity bill from Eversource, and that bill has two sides, as we've talked about before. There's a distribution side and a supply side, or a generation side, it's sometimes called. So the distribution side is the charges that Eversource charges you for delivering the power that you buy to your homes or businesses, but the supply side is what you're actually paying for that electricity that's flowing over those wires. And on the supply side, you can choose who your supplier is. And so what CLC Local Green is a supply option where for every kilowatt hour you use, we will make sure that 1 kilowatt hour is being produced from a renewable resource here in New England. So that's things like wind and solar that are based in New England that are producing energy that is replenishing the energy that you're using from the grid.
Okay, so how does that work? We hear the word SRECs and RECs. What are those?
Sure, a REC stands for Renewable Energy Certificate. And renewable energy certificates are a way to track the production and use of renewable energy. So electricity is really interesting in that you don't know where your electrons that you're using are coming from at your meter. So they could be coming from wind, solar, natural gas, nuclear. There's a whole mix of resources that feed into our regional power grid that may be contributing to your particular home's power at that given time. So because you can't track what you use or what type of energy you're using at the point you're using it, you actually have to track it at the point you're producing it. So RECs, renewable energy certificates, are one way to do that. So the way a REC works is if you have a wind turbine, say, and it's producing energy, that electricity, those electrons are flowing to the grid. But at the same time that it's producing that electricity, it's also producing a REC. So for every 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity generated by a qualified renewable resource, such as wind or solar, it also produces one renewable energy certificate. And so what happens is suppliers, electricity suppliers, are required by the state to purchase a certain amount of these as a percentage of the load that they serve. So let's say, for instance, it's 20%, I'm making up that number. For every 1,000 kilowatt hours they sell, or excuse me, for every 1,000,000 kilowatt hours they sell, they have to buy 200,000 RECs. So there's a market for RECs, there's demand for them. And when you're developing a renewable energy project, you count on that demand for those RECs to help finance your project, because it is expensive to develop projects, especially here in New England. So as a consumer, in order to use renewable energy, like we said earlier, your actual electricity could be coming from a variety of resources. But if you want to claim that you're using 50% or 100% renewable energy, what you need to do is, based on the amount that you're actually using in terms of electricity on an annual basis, you need to purchase RECs equal to the percentage that you want to claim. So if you want to claim, if you're using 10,000 kilowatt hours a year, you want to buy 10 RECs to meet 100% of your usage and claim 100% renewable energy. So what CLC Local Green does is it simplifies that process for people. So for every 1,000 kilo, if you're a CLC Local Green 100% customer, so you're matching 100% with local Massachusetts Class 1 RECs, what we will do is for every 1,000 kilowatt hours you use, we're going to buy and retire 1 REC. And what that does is this is giving people a way to support local renewable energy without putting solar on their home, which not everyone can do, and by paying a few extra cents each day on your power supply, on power supply side of your bill.
Right. So that's the cost here. So when we talk about buying from different sources, you know, Eversource or Cape Light Compact or some of these other companies that are out there, the difference in cost of kilowatt hour for this green energy isn't really that significant.
It's not, but if you look at, on a per kilowatt hour basis, it is not significant. But when you look at a monthly basis, it does add some material cost. And so that's why our board and the staff was very careful about how we rolled out our CLC green aggregation, our standard offering. But we realize that there are people out there that want to do more and can do more through the power supply side of their bill to support renewable energy, and that's why we created this option for people to opt into that want to do that, to have that option available to them to not just support renewable energy at the national level, but also at the local level here in New England.
Right, and does this roll out to just residential, or does it roll out to the business side as well?
Any residential or business customer can participate.
What's the benefits to this to, I guess, climate change and the larger, give me a larger picture. Why should we do this?
Sure, so building energy usage accounts for a large portion of energy usage as a whole. So transportations and buildings are two of the biggest ones. And as we see electric vehicles become more popular, and as we electrify our grid for heating and cooling purposes, those two sectors are going to account for a greater piece of our total electricity usage. And so when you're using more and more electricity, you want to make sure that that electricity is coming from renewable sources. And this power supply program and others that are using greater than the required amount of renewable energy are contributing to that, because what they're doing is they're sending a market signal that there's demand for renewable energy. People want renewable energy, and if you build a project, it's going to get financed in part by those people that are looking for renewable energy on their bill.
Wow. I would imagine there's also economic drivers here as well. This is an emerging industry with all sorts of innovation. It's not just wind turbines now and you know, some panels on your roof. There's all sorts of different technologies that are producing wind and solar as well.
Absolutely, yep. And so these RECs, as we mentioned earlier, they account for a significant piece of the financial puzzle when you're looking at how to develop renewable energy projects, and they are an important driver of renewable energy on an economic basis. And so aggregations like ours, people that are participating in our CLC Local Green program and other aggregations across Massachusetts, and even other just private power supply options that offer extra renewable energy, are really helping drive this market above and beyond what the state is doing through its renewable portfolio standard, that minimum amount that's required.
That's fantastic. How do people find out more or get signed up for this?
So we have information on our website, capelightcompact.org. You can also call our power supply number, 1-800-381-9192, to sign up. To participate in CLC Local Green, you do have to be a Cape Light Compact power supply customer. So if you already are a Cape Light Compact power supply customer, It's easy to enroll in CLC Local Green. If you're not, you can just enroll in our Power Supply program and enroll in CLC Green at the same time.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Senator Sear has updates on leadership and committee assignments and some of the bills he is working on this past month. It's been a busy month up at Beacon Hill. With me today, Senator Julian Sear with his new appointments and his new committee chairs.
Hi, Paula. Good to be
Julian.
with you.
Good to be with you as well. Let's start off right off the first. Congratulations on your Minority Whip appointment.
Majority Whip.
Majority Whip. I'm sorry, Majority Whip.
Thank you. So it's a real. So we're in the stage in the legislative session. The legislature is convened. We filed legislation, bills to start the session, and then the Senate President and Speaker respectively make their committee assignments. And so I was appointed to the Senate President's leadership team, which is a really big honor and typically something that doesn't happen when you're a sophomore legislator, right? I'm in my second term. So I'm the Assistant Majority Whip. Basically, my job is to take the pulse, the temperature of the Democratic caucus on a whole list of issues. But I'm going to get to be in the room, helping to advise the Senate President and the rest of our team on the direction of the Senate. So it's very significant for Cape Cod. Representative Sarah Peak, who represents the Outer and Lower Cape, she again was appointed by the Speaker to leadership. So both Sarah and I, to have lawmakers from Cape Cod. Remember, we only have 8 lawmakers out of the 200 in Beacon Hill who represent Cape Cod, and to have, of the 14 most sort of powerful positions in leadership on Beacon Hill, to have 2 of the 14 from the Cape is very significant for Barnstable and for the whole rest of the region. So hopefully this will allow us to, keep delivering results and good things to the region. With everyone in the Cape delegation, we've got a really remarkable collaborative delegation. So that appointment, I was also tasked with chairing the Joint Committee on Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery. This is a real critical issue, the opiate epidemic and broader addiction epidemics. Huge challenge here across the Commonwealth. If you look at the opiate epidemic, we've made progress, but if you look specifically at Barnstable County, we haven't seen as much progress here.
A little stagnant.
A lot of work that needs to be done. And also on the behavioral health and mental health side of this, this is a real important personal priority for the Senate President. She's spoken publicly about how her own family, her father struggled with mental illness. And so we're going to be taking a big bite and trying to really move the ball forward on mental health parity.
Excellent. And talk a little bit more. You touched on one of your appointments for committees, but there were several others.
Yes. So the mental health is
busy.
I am. Never been shy about doing work. So the Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery Committee, I chair that committee for the Senate. I'm the vice chair of the Housing Committee. Really critical. We expect that I'm really eager to get a housing production and zoning reform bill done. Something that's real important for us here on Cape Cod. We haven't kept up with housing production. Housing is probably the biggest acute issue that folks who want to make a life here, wherever you are in the lifespan, right? Whether you're a young family or you're an older adult, the cost of housing in our out-of-whack real estate market here is just one of the biggest challenges we face. So having a seat on that committee as the vice chair is important. And then I have seats on all the healthcare committees, so the Public Health Committee, the Healthcare Financing Committee. If there's a healthcare issue, I'm going to get to have a say about it. And then I also serve on the Municipalities Committee, which is important because we've got a lot of home rules coming up from our towns.
Right.
And then on the Education Committee, and education is one of the big priorities that we're gonna tackle this session. So the Senate, my colleague Senator Sonia Chang-Diaz has filed a bill in the Senate. Rep. Paul Tucker has filed a bill in the House. The governor filed legislation as part of his budget, and all about having a conversation about how do we better fund public education. We have over a $1.6 billion gap in the money that the state should be sending to public schools. And so this is a big challenge. Actually, today we're recording this. Later today I'm going to be meeting with school superintendents from Cape Cod to get their sense about where in the funding formula what we can do. It's profoundly complicated. This is what's called the Chapter 70 funding formula. But education reform is just especially, and funding reform is just really critical for us, especially here, the cost of health insurance, looking at, I hear a lot about charter reimbursement, and then also English language learners is something that we have an increasing population of and that we need to respond to. So lots of work there.
Lots of work there. And then bills, right?
Yep.
73
So yeah,
bills.
so I filed 73 bills this session, which is more than I think the 33 or 34 I filed last session. And so on a whole range of topics, right? Everything from the opiate epidemic, how do you, we've been focusing on how do you support grandparents raising grandchildren, which we've seen an uptick of in response to the epidemic. I actually now was appointed to serve on a commission that looks at that issue, looking at how do you transition to a clean energy future, a whole host of bills around solar, around allowing communities to buy in to green energy, healthcare is something we spend a lot of time on, and is in my background. So there's actually, if you go to senatorsear.com, there's a whole list of the 73 bills. You can take a look, and lots of exciting stuff there. One bill I do want to highlight that we filed, it's called an act relative to attainable housing in seasonal communities. And it's about, if you look at the housing crisis that we have here on Cape Cod, we've got a whole conversation going on in Beacon Hill about housing production and zoning reform that's largely about Greater Boston. And what our bill does is it takes a whole host of ideas, 12 different various policy ideas that were brought to us by housing advocates, by realtors, by developers, by zoning advocates, planners, and it's a bunch of common sense things that would actually help make a difference for our communities. So the goal is that when we take up this larger legislation around housing, that some fixes that would make a difference for Barnstable, that would make a difference across the Mid-Cape, across the region, that we've got a shot at getting those policy ideas in there too. So looking at topics like tiny homes, how do you expand that? How do you provide flexibility for municipalities, who say are renting an affordable unit or an ADU? You got an accessory dwelling unit or something like that. You're renting it affordably to someone. We should be giving you a property tax break for that. So those sort of ideas. So that's just one bill I wanted to highlight. But there's 72 more. So take a look.
And how about a Schoolhouse Rocks version of how a bill becomes
how a bill becomes law? So there's over 8,000 pieces of legislation that are filed. About 8 or 9% end up being passed at the end of the session. So where we are now in the process, bills have been filed, about 8,000 and change. Those bills have all been now assigned to committees, and there's several dozen committees that take up legislation. And actually now that committee appointments have been made, now committees will hold hearings on each and every bill they're assigned to, and we have a deadline of early February 2020, next year, so actually a little less than a year, 11 months, to go through all of those bills, make a determination on them. You make a recommendation, whether it ought to pass, whether we need to study the issue a little more, or whether we don't think it should pass. And so that's the timeline. So for people who are interested in a various piece of legislation, they should reach out to, yes, their elected representatives and senators, but also to the committee chairs about those bills.
Okay.
So that's where we are, and so now it's all on to committee hearings.
Committee hearings. I want to just go back to a little bit about mental health parity.
Yep.
When we talk about healthcare, especially in this particular area, mental health parity really runs the gamut across the opioid crisis and a lot of the other host of problems that seem to be in our community.
Yeah.
So when you're talking parity, what does that mean?
So what parity means is actually under existing federal and state law, insurance providers and the providers of, if you're a provider who provides medical care, surgical care, and behavioral health, that you have to provide the same level of benefits, the same level of care for medical and surgical health care as you do for behavioral health care. Right. Now, under law, you're supposed to actually be doing that. That's what we call parity. But we know, both from the lived experiences of patients and just more broadly across the healthcare system, is that's not actually happening, right? Insurers actually are not, providing parity for behavioral health benefits. Healthcare providers are not making behavioral health as accessible as, sort of more traditional medicine. So what we're looking at is a series of different ideas are out there. One bill that's going to come before my committee essentially directs the Department of Insurance to request data, to request information, and to really raise the bar on having insurers and healthcare providers really proving to the state that they are indeed providing parity. We know that when we get that information, it's going to show that they're not in compliance with state and federal law, and so just the act of gathering that data will actually sort of, we hope, would move towards getting more parity. So that's that. When we talk about mental health parity, that's what we're talking about.
Excellent, thanks. Is there anything else you want our viewers to know?
I don't know, only like 150 things.
Right.
But I think that, as always, we work really hard to, serve our constituents. We've got an office right here in Barnstable Town Hall on the second floor. Please stop by. Of those 73 bills that we filed, many of them came from ideas that we heard from constituents about. Challenges around getting solar panels in historic districts, concerns around the estate tax, how it's structured in Massachusetts and how that might be pushing people to leave seasonal communities for typically warmer climes. So those sort of ideas are really helpful to us in the policy-making process, and just encouraging residents in Barnstable and across the Cape and Islands District to keep reaching out.
Excellent. Well, we won't keep you any longer. Get to work.
Good to see you, Paula. Thank you.
You too, Julian. Open burning is well underway in the town of Barnstable, and Chief Wynn from the Comm Fire Department has some cautions and reminders before you light those brush fires. Burn, baby, burn. That's right. It's open burning season here in the town of Barnstable. With me today, Chief Wynn from Comm Fire Station with some tips and some fire safety.
Good morning, Paula. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to present to Channel 18 again. As Paula stated, it is open burning season here and across the Commonwealth. The open burning season runs from January 15th to May 1st. It's important to note that open burning is allowed with the permission of the Department of Environmental Protection, who determines that the air quality is capable of supporting open burning. The local fire departments are tasked with making sure that the open burning rules are adhered to, but it's important for folks to realize it's ultimately the decision of the Department of Environmental Protection whether or not burning is allowed on each day. The rules for open burning here in the town of Barnstable are consistent with those across the Commonwealth. Burning is allowed from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Fires must be attended at all times. I can't stress enough the importance that when you're doing open burning, that you attend that fire, have a method of extinguishment readily available, and keep all open burning at least 75 feet from all structures and dwellings. As we know, as we get later in the spring, we approach the month of April, we have a lot of loose ground cover, leaves, twigs, branches that are very, very dry as we wait for the spring to turn our beautiful Cape Cod green. Those materials are very, very combustible and can spread fire growth very rapidly. So we always require that the fire be attended at all times. Burning hours are 10 to 4, and you have to have it 75 feet from a building and a method of extinguishment readily available to help you should that fire get out of control.
Right. And how do residents get their permits? So I know everyone's got to get a permit to do their open burns.
Sure. At the Comm Fire District, you can use our website, which is www.commfiredistrict.com, to determine if we're allowing open burning on a particular day. Once that status is obtained, you can then burn. And like any call for service, if someone calls with a concern about open burning, we will always respond, as will the other districts here in the town of Barnstable. One important note that I think folks need to be aware of is the term nuisance. In any open burning situation, whether it's a cooking fire, an open burning fire, it's a fire on the beach, if someone has a concern or allegation that the smoke has become a nuisance, the fire is extinguished no matter what. That is required by the Department of Environmental Protection to protect everyone's health and safety, especially those with respiratory problems. So despite being a clear day to conduct open burning and you have a safe fire and you are 75 feet from a building with a method of extinguishment and you're attending a fire, if a neighbor or an abutter finds that smoke is creating a nuisance, you have to extinguish your fire.
Okay. And when we're talking about these fires, they should be contained and small. You don't want these large brush fires out there in the middle of the woods.
Correct. So our status, or our opinion on that is that the fire should be approachable. If you can't get close to the fire, it's obviously too big. Use small amounts of material at a time, burn it incrementally. Don't add any combustible fluids or liquids to the fire to get the fire started. Only use natural kindling to start the fire, and use common sense. It goes a long way when you're doing open burning. For many, open burning is a rite of passage here and a rite of spring on Cape Cod, but there's danger associated. We just want you to conduct yourself safely, be conscientious of your neighbors, and enjoy the day you get to spend outside burning brush.
Right. And just for those who are burning brush with children around, this is really one of those things that, as I grew up, you know, keep the kids away from this.
Absolutely. With any open fire, really, vigilance is key. You've got to watch little kids. An accident can happen in a second, and having experienced one myself, I can't state strongly enough how important it is to be vigilant, pay attention, have a method of extinguishment available, and take it safe.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief.
You bet. Thank you.
Here's a look at the upcoming meetings for boards, commissions, and committees. Up next, things to do, places to go, and people to meet. Donald Golland, ink painter, art exhibit is now on the walls at Barnstable Town Hall, second floor meeting rooms through April 18th. Donald Golland is a self-taught artist and a passionate student of Eastern philosophy who works principally in colored inks on mulberry paper and acrylic on canvas. Donald's artistic journey began in 1985 with watercolor collages. Comments, suggestions, accolades, connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.